We interrupt this program to bring you an important Wayfair message. Wayfair's got style tips for every home. This is Nicole Byer, helping you make those rooms flyer. Today's style tip: when it comes to making a statement, treat bold patterns like neutrals. Go wild! Like an untamed animal print area rug under a rustic farmhouse table from Wayfair.com. Ooh, fierce! This has been your Wayfair style tip to keep those interiors superior.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Hello. Welcome to Authenticity the Hard Way. I'm Asha Zalika, and I want to thank you, first and foremost and always. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to spend with me as I share my life experiences that have helped me, pushed me to become this higher version of myself. I appreciate you for taking the time, and it's my ultimate hope and ultimate desire that in sharing my experiences, you will be encouraged, strengthened, receive more hope and wisdom, perhaps, on how to navigate life experiences. The premise of Authenticity the Hard Way is that it is our experiences, especially the harsh ones, that evolve us into the next highest version of ourselves. Excuse me. And oftentimes we don't see it that way. You know, when we're in the grips of traumatic experiences, discomforting situations and circumstances, we can't see beyond that angst that's caused within us. But it is precisely those experiences that cause the most growth. And speaking about and sharing my experiences has helped me grow and expand and elevate tremendously. And I am grateful to myself for having the courage to speak, because oftentimes we don't. As human beings, we shut down on ourselves, and that's a part of our lower selves, is shutting down, hiding, because it's been conditioned into us. But at this time in the world, we are moving into, as a collective, we are moving up, we are elevating, we are expanding as a species, and finding out that we're finding out more and more on an individual basis that we are all connected. And I am leaning heavily into that right now, and realizing that the more that I share, the more I am able to become more involved in humanity, I guess you could say. It's my, what I'd say, a small token to help share, spread love, compassion, unity through my pain, through my sorrow. Having come through it all, I'm now at the place where I just want to give. I just want to share. I just want to help. So here we are. Here I am. What I want to talk about today is it's a very harsh experience. It may be triggering. So if you have to watch this in degrees in time, take your time. Because I had to heal from it in degrees. It took time. I don't sugarcoat. I will never sugarcoat. This is raw. This is authentic. Authenticity, the hard way. This is authentic, true life experience. And it's one that I thought when I began the podcast, when the idea came to do the podcast, I thought it would have been one of the first experiences that I shared. But it hasn't turned out that way, and I understand why. Because in order to fully communicate and allow for the transference of energy or spirit between myself and you, I have to be in a space of a totality of healing. Doesn't mean that I won't still feel the emotion of it. But I have, in order to successfully communicate it, I have to have already successfully evolved out of it. I hope that makes sense. So that I'm not transmitting or transferring any of the lingering pain or confusion or hurt from that situation. And I am so elated to say that I can now share this because I have evolved out of it. And I know that I have. So as I said, it is triggering. I will be talking about the death and loss of a loved one. So if you are now experiencing this in your life, take a moment, take some time. And back off. If you can't handle this, don't force yourself. I'm doing it. It's here. It's available for you. And this always comes to me, in the culmination of time, you will know. Okay, let me listen. So this is, how do I start? My oldest son was murdered August 2010. And it was a violent murder. He was shot in his face. And I was 7 months pregnant with another son. That whole time period was very chaotic, very uncertain, very painful, and very fearful time. And in that time period, we had a lot of young men who were very close to me and my children killed. A lot. And my son's murder fell in line with that. He was shot in his face. I heard the shot. I was in my room, and my other son went out, and a neighbor And I won't go into too much detail, but when we got to him, he was face down. My neighbor turned him over, and the gun blast, his face was just mangled. And I stood over him, and we made eye contact with the eye he had left. And when we made eye contact, my baby in me flipped. It was painful, but I was numb. I was really numb, and I'm looking at my son, feeling the erratic movement of my baby in my belly. And then I heard myself say, as I'm looking eye to eye with my son, I heard myself say, "It's okay, son." And then he was gone. I felt him leave. But there was this I don't want to call it a void, but there was this presence around, there was just this energy around me that had me in such a state of peace and stillness that I can't explain. And as I looked around me, there was chaos everywhere. There were police lights and sirens and screaming and young men trying to push over cars. It was a horrific scene. And I was right in the middle of it. And life after that just exploded into darkness. We lost our apartment, ended up having to stay at with a neighbor in the same apartment complex. I had my baby in October. 3 months later, he almost died. I wasn't dilating. He was crowning. They had given me as much medication as they could. They decided to do a crash cesarean and got him out right before he took his first breath. After that, homeless in a motel. Just being all I had was my faith in God that held me through these series of events. As a matter of fact, after my son was killed, we were in the police department, only ones there. And I got up and I went to the bathroom. And as soon as the door closed behind me, I leaned up against the wall and just kind of melted down the wall, my great big old belly just in my lap. And I felt that sensitive space where you begin to lose your mind, where my psyche began to split. I felt it. And all I could say was, "God help me." My body was weak. I felt literally like I was going to die right there. And then this warmth came around me and it felt like I was being held. And I heard a voice. God spoke and he said, you cannot die with him because this baby has to live. And I was instantly encouraged and felt strength and went on from there. But during the whole, it's crazy. Through it all, I was held. And things only got worse. Just by following step after step that was revealed to me in that moment, I navigated and I did the next best thing. And God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, met me at each step. Immediately after that, like I said, we were homeless. We were in a motel. At, I think, 2 weeks, we were figuring out how to stay in a motel. And I got direction. I received call this person, and this person called this person, and this person called this person. And I think my baby was, then he was maybe 2 going on 3 weeks. And we got into a transitional living program for women with infants and children. But that, my son dying at my feet, the trauma of that. Now, it wasn't like that happened and then I had the opportunity to deal with it. That happened. I had homeless. There was never an opportunity for me to actually deal with that because survival mode. Continually in survival mode. But while we were in the transitional living program, and here's God or the divine plan in motion. So this program was only for 3 months to a year, 90 days to a year. I was there for 3 years. And in those 3 years, I went in broken, terrified, and I worked the program. I did what was required of me because I knew that if I was there, there was a purpose for me being there. And it was hard. It was not easy. It was hard. It was the rules and, a lot. And it was full of women, so there were a lot of emotions and a lot of stuff. But I worked the program. I did the steps that were given to me. I went to the meetings. I was faithful to do what I needed to do. And from there, we moved into, I got my own apartment. But still, I healed to a point where I was able to accept that my son was gone. But in doing that, I had to continually look at this little baby and try to figure out how to bond with him while mourning my oldest. So in that, I learned mastery of emotion and relationship. And I learned so much just in the embracing of new life and the releasing of another life. Very, very intense, literally on the job training, you could say, because I'm doing this and I'm learning how to do this. So I was able to heal to a certain point there. And then all healing stopped because once we left the program and I'm in my own apartment, life took on a totally different dynamic. And then there was the struggle, literal struggle for survival, trying to pay the rent. Childcare would cost more than my rent. No transportation. Issues with my children growing up, trying to navigate in their teens. It was horrible. So it was one horrible experience moving into another horrible experience. Lost the apartment. Ended up homeless for 7 years. All this time trying to navigate, figuring it out while figuring me out. And it was during that time period of 10 years, I realized that the woman that I was not the woman that I was. It was during that time period where I learned in the midst of the struggle, on the battlefield, in the trench, I realized that who I was and how I was living and how I was showing up for other people was not me. Like I felt this yearning, like deep in my solar plexus, right up under, you can't see this, but right up under here, there was a birthing taking place. And I would wake up and sit and have my morning communion time, and it felt like something was inside me trying to come up, out, forward, just evolving. And that's how I got on the road to self-authentication. It was in year after year after year of having nothing, not knowing where I was going to stay with this young child, because there's 13 years between that child, my youngest, and my next oldest. 13 years. So navigating being a mother again and then trying to be present for my older children. The fact that I did not lose my mind is a testimony to the resilience of your true self and the word that was spoken to me, the power of God's word that was spoken to me, that I could not die. I had to live because another life had to live. So that trauma was the catalyst for me getting here. And not only so, if we could just leave it at my son being murdered, but that wasn't it. Because there were 3 other young men that were a part of me that were murdered in sequence right after him. My little core of a family, me and my kids, it was horrendous. Every time we turned around, another young man, another son was murdered. And it felt like pieces of me were just being ripped away from me. But in actuality, it was more catalysts, more experiences that were slowly turning the wheels on this vehicle, on this journey to becoming the next highest version of myself. What I'm saying is it was gut-wrenching pain that, oh, what I just saw. Okay, so I love when this happens. So in Venom, when Venom is fully over Eddie Brock, right? It's just black Venom. And then there's that frequency that hits him, Venom, and causes him to separate from Eddie, that frequency and that separation of pulling, that is the perfect example of what my journey was at that point in time. Everything that hit me was like that frequency that was pulling me more, pulling my actual true self, pulling it out. And there was nothing I can do to stop it because I had set myself on that. How did I set myself on it? By not running from it. I had to live. Not only did I had to live because I had a new son and then I had my other children to care for, but because of the calling that I had accepted years before. Years 16, 17, 18, 19 years before. As a young woman, I accepted the call that I didn't even know was a call. I just gave into the desire that eclipsed my entire being of helping, of being of service. So I had set myself, I didn't know when I was a young girl, I didn't know about God. I didn't know about the spiritual realm. I didn't know any of that. All I knew was that there is something inside of me that wants to help. And I leaned into that. I just keep seeing like Venom and Eddie just being, But there was that moment in the movie where Eddie had to relinquish himself and say, okay, you and me, we won. This is what we doing. And that is what I had to do. In the midst of the trauma, in the midst of the pain, in the midst of the fear, in the midst of the desperation, in the midst of the confusion. Okay, this is what we're doing. I have a charge to keep. I can't quit now. So situation after situation after situation, circumstance after circumstance, and I'm still healing, right? Through everything that I experienced. I didn't, like I said, I didn't have the time to just sit down and say, and grieve. I grieved and I mourned while I was going forward, crawling forward, clawing forward. It was a continual. He's gone, I have to move on. He's gone, I have to move on. And then also, he stayed with me. My oldest son stayed with me for a long time, especially when I was trying to figure out how to love this new baby. He would speak to me. I would feel his presence. I would be out and I would see a young man that would look just like him. And then I would feel him around me. But I had a whole spiritual realm of beings around me continually. And I knew it. I could feel it. I was not alone. although in my natural, in the physical realm, there's very few people. So we fast forward to 2023. And I think in my last episode, I spoke about how I had made myself, me and my son, homeless again. So it was during this time where we were living in a motel, and my middle son and his wife got me and my youngest out of the motel, and we moved in with my daughter-in-law's cousin, moved into my daughter-in-law's cousin's home. And that was our kind of segue. It was a blessing, which got us into our home now. But it was during that time in June of 2023, I met a man. I was not looking for a relationship. I had just come out of a very... I actually talk about that relationship in one of the podcast episodes. But I was not looking for a relationship at all. I was focusing on evolving. That was it. I want to get to the next highest version of myself. That's where I'm going. And this man came into my life. Very unique man. 6'5". I'm 5'2". Come on now. But when we met, it was an instant bond. It felt like I had known this man my entire life. And we had just met. He was where we were. He didn't live there. He lived in Oklahoma. He was there to help take care of a family member. And the emotions were so powerful. Like, honestly, like we had been, like India Irie's song, where she says, what'd she say? It feels like I knew you before, like maybe I was your husband and you were my wife. This song. Anyway, I actually sent that to him one time. But here's the thing. So there's no coincidences in life. And if you believe that things just happen by chance as coincidence, that's not true. This man came into my life at this specific moment. His birthday was the same as my deceased son's birthday, which is February 22nd. 222. I believe in angel numbers. When he told me his birthday, life just froze. And I had to take a step back and I said, okay, this is divine. There is a specific reason for this relationship. 222 is all about harmony, balance. He took me. I went hiking with him. He took me to the mountains, and I'd never been hiking before, never spent time in nature like that before in my life. And he just opened up a whole new world to me. In that, it was only 6 weeks, y'all. We were only together for 6 weeks. But in that 6 weeks, it was like I did a quantum leap in evolution of myself. Being out in nature, climbing rocks, and it was a whole new world. A whole new world. Yep, that one. And he showed me. the love that he gave me showed me my worth. It was not all the other relationships in my life were based on sex. Different video, different podcast, different. He showed me my worth. He did it in a way that was so gentle and so compassionate, but yet so powerful that it transformed me daily. One day we said, we worked out together, which was another thing. Like, we were in the gym. It was amazing. Like, anyway, let's go for a run. Let's go for a run after our workout. Okay, cool. I'm down for a run. I love to run. So he takes me to the mountains where there's trails all around. And I'm like, cool. And I said, well, where are we going? Which direction are we going? He said, you see that flag way up there on the top of that little mountain over there? And here I am like this. No. He said, baby, put your glasses on. Put my glasses on. That flag way out there? He like, yeah. And I mean, it was way out there. He said, yeah. Cool. And so here we go. And we just walking and running, talking, and we get way up there. And I felt a shift, and in my natural mind, I'm thinking, because we're up high, it's a shift in elevation, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, okay. And then he takes off running. He got these long old legs, and I got, so 6'5" and 5'2", and he takes off, and I'm like, trying to catch up with him. And he went up and around. He came around, the trail came around this way, and he went up like this and kind of disappeared. So I'm chugging here, I'm coming up, and I turned the little bend right here. And he said, he had already stopped. And he said, I didn't know this was here. So by the time I got up there, I'm like, what? And he was facing this way, and I came up this way, and I stood right beside him, and I turned. And right in front of us was this huge rock that had a little tackle box on it. I think that's what it's called, a metal box. Not a tackle box, but it was a metal box that had the little metal clips right here that you could lift up and put stuff in. And the flag was grounded in the rock behind this box. And on the box was a piece of paper that had been taped on there. And it said, in loving memory of our lost sons. Time froze. And I read it again. The second time I read it, this gust of wind came. And it circled around us. The flag was waving like this. And all I could do, I started shaking. And all I could do was say, emotion, emotion, emotion. And he grabbed me and spun me around and held me. He's 6'5", and he just towered over me. And he had me. And I broke. And the wind was just howling around us. But I could feel the presence of a multitude of people. It felt like we were surrounded. And I also could sense the presence of angels and celestial beings. And I am crying. I'm not, I couldn't feel my body. All I could feel was him holding me. And I don't know how long I cried. It seemed like forever. And I just cried, and he just held me. And the wind, and then all of a sudden there was just stillness that literally came like this. And the wind stopped. And in the stillness, I realized that I had stopped crying. And I was different. He let go of me, and I looked up at him, and he said, "You're okay now." Quantum leap healing. I quantum evolved, like just it. It was amazing. And we walked back down to the ground, to the bottom. And I was not the same woman that I was when I walked up, when we started. By the time I got to the bottom, I was tangibly different. 2 weeks after that, he was gone. Divine appointment for a divine relationship that led to divine healing and evolution. A year later, almost a year later, February 22nd, 2024, I'm in a home. As soon as he left, 2 months after he left and went back home, me, my family, got our own home. The end of homelessness. October 1, 2023. The end of homelessness. So February 2022, 2024, it's my son's birthday, my deceased son's birthday. I woke up and life froze. I'm in my room, but not. And I just remember putting my feet on the floor and breaking again. And I'm just crying, and I'm crying, and I'm crying. My daughter opened the door. She said, "Mom, you all right?" I said, "No. Now I get to grieve again." And she backed out. And in that, because I was out of survival mode, so what happened on the mountain was transformative, but being out of survival mode, not worried about having to survive, having a home, that was another layer of grief and of mourning that I was able to release and just the whole day, I just cried. I made peace. I cried more. I made peace. I cried more. I made acceptance. I made a different level of me, a different version of myself healed again. And by the end of the day, I look around and I look at myself, and I was different. I'd evolved out of the trauma of it at that version of myself. This is March 15th. So last month on February 22nd, on my son's birthday, I woke up and I smiled. Because there was the closure. There was wholeness. There's healing. I'm healed. I'm delivered. I have reached the evolution of it. I'm done. It doesn't hurt anymore. There's nothing but joy, me, here. And in this place where I am right now, there's bliss. That's not to say that there are not things going on. But at this version of myself, through a 14-year healing process, healing journey that affected my whole entire life, my whole being, I'm in a state of bliss. Like I said, it's not that there aren't things going on around, right? At any moment I could say, you know what? At any moment I could step out of this version of myself. Hear me. At any moment I can shift my thoughts onto a subject that is happening in the natural realm, in my present reality, and find trouble. It's a thought. At any moment, I can think about something and go from being up here to down. What the metaphysical world calls it, I can go from, because I'm ascending into 5D, I am elevating, ascending into this next higher consciousness that I have. Coming from 3D, which is steeped in the physical realm and materialism and all the things out here. At any moment, I could let one thought take me back 14 years and experience all of that all over again. One thought. But this is the thing. I understand this. So when I say that at this moment, I have bliss, I have this joy, this electricity, this energy, this emotion. Energy in motion is the emotion of joy, bliss, whatever you want to call it. It's my choice. It's my choice. And from this higher, lighter, fluid, ethereal kind of essence up here? No, thank you. No, thank you. I've healed. I've healed my way into this version of myself, authentically me, my true, authentic self. But it took 14 years of facing the pain, of doing the work, of accepting. That's not me. I know that woman is not me. Okay, who is she? And how did she get here? So let me track that. Let me find the shadow in her. Let me do the work to figure out what caused her to be so fearful. What? Okay, and so then let me trace these things and let me go back and let me allow her to heal. That's what I did. That's what I had to do. I had to experience the trauma, live with and in the trauma while working on myself. That's how you do it. And there is no straight road to it. There is no step-by-step plan or strategy to become the next highest version of yourself. If somebody is selling you, trying to sell you a program on how to become the next highest version of yourself, stop it. Stop it. It's in the trenches. It's taking each moment, each trauma, each yuck. I couldn't find a word. And dealing with it. And you can't say it's one step right in front of the other, because it doesn't work like this. Because you could step here and then have to go over here, and then you might just have to come back here and go this way and then go away. It's a jacket. Sometimes it'll do like this. And you just have to stay centered and focused on the next highest step, the next highest emotion. It's hard. It's hard. Evolving. Like having a baby. It's hard. But it becomes easier with the less resistance that you give in the process. You know, I used to wonder how, and I'm going to close with this. I used to wonder how women could have, I had 5 children. And that was something. And then I had to say, well, you know how. But before I started having children, I used to wonder how women could have 9, 10, 11, 12 children. Birth. You know, how you do that? That's pain. It hurt to have a baby. Then you going to do it 13 times? But then I realized, once you master the art of delivery, you learn how to work with the delivery process. You learn to maintain yourself in the labor of the delivery process. And then once you learn how to do that, it then becomes a part of you, and then it becomes natural. So when the pains hit, when the contractions hit, women, we collapse because the pain is so sudden, and we panic and tense up. But when you learn that when the pain hits and you move with the pain, breathe with the pain, maintain yourself and focus in the pain, it becomes easier. And that's how it is when you're dealing with traumatic situations. Don't resist the process. Lean into it. Take the path of least resistance. Embrace the hurt. Breathe into it. And allow yourself to release. That is evolution. How do you become the next highest version of yourself possible? By embracing the trauma, the bad and harsh experiences, and leaning into it. Not cringing and to fight. Ride the wave and let it pass. Then the next crashing experience, you ride the wave and let it pass. And know that what is inside of you is stronger and more resilient than any traumatic experience you can go through. And that experience is to birth you. Until you get to the point where you can then turn around and say, hey, I did it. So can you. And that's what I'm saying to you. I did it. I healed through that traumatic experience. And so can you. You really can. You might not feel like it. That's your feelings. It hurts. And I'm not being facetious. It hurts. You feel like you can't make it. But I'm here to tell you that you can. In the face of that, I can't make it, you say, yes, I can. Come on. We're going. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for hearing. But most importantly, I want to thank you in advance for not giving up on yourself. The next highest version of yourself is on the other side of this thing you're facing now. Remember that. Stay strong. And I'll see you soon.